Hello. Good evening. Thank you all for coming out. My name is Colin McDonald, in case you don't know, and I have the honor of serving on and chairing the Chester Fire Committee. It's a great honor to me. And Nancy Hatch was the reason I'm doing it. And I wish. I think she regrets that she got me this. I wish to welcome you to our public meeting. And thank each of you for taking some busy time on your busy lives to attend this important event. I have to work off this, otherwise I get a little vulgar by times when I'm talking, so. I apologize if I do say some swear words. To say it's been a long, tedious journey to this point would be an understatement. Most especially when I consider the time, energy, and effort given by Heather, Kirk, Wilson, Norman, Nancy, James, and Cody, and Jared, as well as other members of the Chester Volunteer Fire Department. As you all know, we all have lives and occupations outside of this effort in this project. This work, I can actually talk better away from that. As you know, we've dedicated a lot of time, energy, and focus on this project to build a very long overdue new station. I can tell you that we do it because of the enormous respect and debt we owe to our true community heroes. Our volunteer fire and women and men who stand up and sacrifice so very much for our safety and our well-being. They give freely of their time and energy and lives, not only trained to fulfill the roles they have willingly accepted, and even more importantly, they respond to our fire emergencies, our vehicle crashes, and our health challenges. These women and men respond to 320 call-outs a year, as well as put in another 25 days in training sessions, so that they are prepared to face our emergencies. They do this at all times of the day and night, and regardless of meals, sleep, vacation, family time, jobs, and other activities. They take their responsibility for the fire service to their community as first and foremost in their lives. Why, you certainly should ask. Because these women and men believe in giving back to their community, just as their forefathers did before them. They believe that being a good neighbor embodies the obligation and the responsibility to provide aid and assistance to the community, to you and me. We're damn lucky to have them. I repeat, we are damn lucky to have them. And that's what the free saying. Our obligation as a community who benefit from their spirits and sacrifices and their giving and protection and helping is to, first and foremost, you need to make sure they can do their job without undue risk to their physical and mental health. That is why we need to provide them with both the necessary equipment and the facility to minimize and remove risks associated with the services they give freely to us. You and me have to supply that. Removing risks such as cancer-causing chemicals and debris from their bodies and uniforms and equipment after they fight our fire emergencies. Our current facility, besides being 60 years old and falling apart, is not suited for modern firefighting equipment, nor does it allow for proper decontamination. As well, it has little or no training space, and just as importantly, camaraderie and relaxation training, both of which help to overcome the mental stress of their dangerous and mentally painful situations. If we wish to continue to have these amazing volunteers protect our community, we have an even bigger responsibility to protect them. I turn and look at the faces in this room, and I have the same response as when I look at my face in the mirror. Would I be willing to sacrifice so much of my physical and mental health, my precious time with my family, my sleeping hours, my quiet enjoyment of a meal? I'm afraid that some of us don't really appreciate the sacrifices and the need we have for the rest of the community. That is until we or one of our loved ones is threatened by a fire, a vehicle accident, or a medical emergency. If and when we are facing these major crises in our life, and this volunteer force rolls up to our aid and rescue, then we can finally awaken to the amazing service and support that these amazing community heroes gave us, our neighbors and our community. As the signs on number 3 state, they are truly our community heroes. I stand here to say thank you to each and every one, past, present, and future, from the very bottom of my heart. And I stand here prepared to ensure they receive what they both need and deserve in a facility that protects both their physical and mental health. Thank you very much. I'll let Wilson, the more intelligent one, take over now.
That was great.
Is this on?
No, you gotta turn it on.
What would we do without good technical help? Either. Is it on or not on?
It's on.
Okay.
You can use mine if you like.
It's on.
Thank you very much, Colin. That was very, very well said, very eloquently spoken, and strikes a chord in all of us, I think, that are involved in this project or involved in any manner at all with the fire hall. So thank you, much appreciated. So Heather, I'm going to depart briefly. I'm going to depart from protocol here right out of the gate. And my job is to get into the weeds and start talking about how this unfolds, schedule and money wise and all that sort of stuff. But before I do that, I'm going to give an opportunity for Nick Hurdle, who is just recently elected as deputy chief, and then not what he had planned. I don't think he got parachuted into the acting fire chief role. So Nick, come on up and say a couple of words before I get going here.
Thank you, Wilson. Good evening, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the DC of Chester Fire, Nick Hurdle. I won't take much of your time tonight. I just want to touch on a few things on the new station. CVFD has been working hand in hand with the CFSC, Wilson Fit, Donna, Heather, Akers, and many, many more. I want to use one of the quotes. I want to use a quote of one of my close friends, Blake Cork. This is the best thing that CVFD has seen in 40+ years. And we couldn't be happier to work with all the wonderful, intelligent people that has put countless amount of hours and time into this project. I've had the privilege of being on the hall committee from the start of this project, and I continue to stay on it and work with all of our amazing team in the CVFD. There, now I lost my spot. The CVFD has the utmost honor to be giving the new station properly serve the wonderful people of the fire district and the surrounding areas who support us so greatly. We, the CVFD, support this project 100% in its entirety. And we couldn't be happier for all the support that we've been getting and all the countless amount of hours from everybody sitting in this room. It's just, it's amazing. I don't know how else to say it. It's been a long time coming, and yeah, so thank you very much for all your hard time, all your time, all your hard work. I'll hand the floor back to Wilson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nick. Nick is obviously a little bit out of his element here, but he's rising to the occasion wonderfully. So out of his element, I'm standing on his hind legs and talking to a group of people. He's not out of his element at all when it comes to doing the job at hand, which is being a firefighter and now being a deputy chief and acting chief. So my job is, I was recruited by Colin, thank you very much, buddy, to be the project, project director as a member of the Chester Fire Services Committee, which is the umbrella organization with members representing both the municipality and the village that deals with money, and now the main job that we're dealing with is getting the new fire hall construction organized. So I was recruited onto that committee, not, as I've said before, and many of you have heard me say, not because I know anything about putting out fires or firefighting, but because I do know something about building buildings. And I rely on the expertise around me for the firefighting part of it. My job is to put the pieces together. So we have a very strong project team, and I want to thank particularly the fire department leadership, both those that are outgoing, Cody Stevens, former chief, who is dealing with, Cody has a very, very busy life. He's a professional with the fire department in Halifax, and he's got a whole bunch of kids of various ages, so he has a very, very busy life. And Jared McDonald down here, outgoing deputy. Jared has been a real rock when it comes to providing solid input for the design team and the project management team. So thank you, guys, the outgoing leadership. And thanks to Nick Hurdle here, who is stepping up and filling those very large boots. Nick is, we're all, and I'm talking about the project team, we're really impressed on, the last, 2 months or so, Nick, that we've been dealing, very, very impressed with Nick's grasp of the issues and his ability to cut to the chase and tell us what he thinks we're doing right and be quick to tell us when we're doing something wrong. So that input is very good. And Nick, of course, is supported by the hall committee and the fire hall committee and all the fire hall members. And as near as I can tell, is strongly supported by them and has their full confidence, which filters through to us. So I think we're in a pretty strong position from that regard. So we have a project team, project managers, Gray Cardinal, management, Donna Hoare. Where's Donna?
Whoops, she's down here.
Hmm? Oh, Donna, down here. Sorry, Donna's at the front table here. That's how important Donna is. And her sidekick, Bobby, here. So they are Gray Cardinal. They are charged with the day-to-day management of the project and minding the money and minding the schedule and taking care of paperwork and helping us through all the tendering processes that we are going to go through. Dawn and I have worked together on projects over in many years gone by, and I'll tell you that she is the best there is in the project management world. So we're very lucky to have Gray Cardinal on that. Acre Architects, Wendy and Stephen. You're here. You're here. Okay. Wendy and Stephen are, Gary, sorry, are the key people on the project design team, the architects out of Dartmouth and out of St. John, New Brunswick, and lots of fire hall experience. Wendy was just telling me you've got a couple of other fire halls on the go right now, so they are rapidly becoming the fire hall experts, and we're benefiting from that expertise. Their sub-consultants, CBCL Engineering, are doing civil engineering, structural engineering, mechanical, electrical, hydrogeology. I'll come back to that in a minute, and energy modeling. So they've got that whole umbrella of specialty engineering services. Also, as a sub-consultant to Acre is a company called S2 Architecture out of Calgary or Edmonton, out of Calgary, who are emergency service specialists. And they are very, very sharp on fire hall stuff. They're in on all of our conference calls. Most of this in this modern age is done by Zoom calls, so they're in on that. RJ Bartlett Engineering are building code and particularly fire codes specialists. And landscape architecture, plans for people, hardware consultant. Hardware in this context is doors and windows, doorknobs and hinges. and it's a big deal. You'd be surprised at how much trouble you can get in with hardware. Leo down here is laughing. You've been there, have you, Leo? Anyway, Atlantic Hardware is going to take care of doorknobs for us, and the cost consulting is done by Gray Cardinal, Donna's people, and I'll come back to that again. So we've got a top-notch team that we put together. We went through a procurement process through the municipality to hire all these people, and it was a competitive process based, a qualification-based process. So it was not a price-based. We didn't beat any of these people up for price on this. We were looking for the best, and I think we got the best. Schedule. So we are here. That's Wendy's handwriting on that. We are here slide, by the way. The design cycle for a project like this is a fairly, it's not rigid, but it's in defined steps. So we start out with pre-design, which was done a long time ago, and Acre did that. You recall 2-3 years ago, perhaps there was a meeting in this room, and there were boards put up to kind of prime the pump, and that was a separate contact that Acre had. Schematic design, we started in the fall before Christmas, I guess, late fall of this year. And that schematic design is kind of the hand waving stage where we move blocks, or the architects with talking to us, move blocks of uses, you know, what's going to be related to who and how is the building circulation going to happen. So that has all been done with the heavy involvement of the firefighters. We are now in what's called the design development stage, which is where and you can see from these boards at the back, we have real layouts now, and all of the circulation and functional relationship stuff has been, we're well into that. We're coming towards the end of that now, and that's all sorted out. The next stage, which is the real detailed stuff, is where all of these ideas that have bubbled up in the schematic and design development stage get put down on an enormous set of drawings and specification books that list basically every single doorknob. We'll come back to doorknobs, but all of that stuff that goes in the building in nauseating detail. And that's the stage you guys are going to pick up on very, very shortly here. So that gives us a set of construction documents that we can go to tender with, and to the construction trades, and we get permits and so on. We're looking at a construction date in the late fall, start of construction. We do have to go to tender. The tendering will be publicly done through the municipality system. So it'll be a public tender. There's some chatter about an early start on site work. If we can make that happen, it would be advantageous because we gain on schedule if we can split the site work and get started there early on in say August or September before the rains come. And also it will help us manage our risks, because, and Donna would probably, I hope she'll nod at me about this, but site work is among the most difficult part of a project to estimate. You don't know what you're into until you start to dig the hole. And there's lots of projects that have gotten into serious budget trouble right out of the gate. So if we know that if we know what the site conditions are, we've done the geotechnical, the whole, you know, test pits have been dug. So, but there's always a risk with site work. And if we can manage that risk by getting out in front of it, then, and we have to adjust our downstream costs, we'll be better off overall, I think. So that's a possibility. There's no reason right now to think that the site is particularly difficult. We're in Drumlin territory here. So, and the test pits showed that it was, you know, gravel and silt and mud and bedrock is a long, long way down. And the well that got drilled there by the municipality a few years ago, the well logs showed the same thing. It's only one hole on a fairly big site, but there's no indication now that we're in trouble in terms of site work. There is just a little sidebar, but there is a good news on the well. We did have, you might have noticed, when was it? It was in February?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's lots of snow on the ground. anyway, CBCL's hydrogeologist crowd were up there doing, pump tests on the well, and there's lots of water and the quality is pretty good. There's not enough water to fill the trucks, but there's lots of water for the domestic requirements of the building, the potable water requirements. So we, knowing the well problems around here, I feel that we were pretty lucky there. Sorry, I keep going here. Since I pulled Nick up earlier, I'll skip over my Nick sheet. So the general layout is back there. That'll be there after we finish. But at this stage of the game, Wendy and Steve and Gary, I don't know if you're going to triple time this thing or how you're going to do it, but they're going to walk us through the design as it exists right now. I should say there'll be lots of time after we're finished here for questions. So please don't spend time hopping up and down and waving your hand in the air at this stage, but remember what you wanted to ask about, and we'll come back to you after.
Thanks, Wilson. Can everyone hear me through the back? Well, like Wilson said, we're working on a bunch of stations and have completed some Grand Falls, and we have one in actually in Halifax and Plains under construction. In Kapakindi, Toronto. So public safety and public safety architecture are passion. So we're really honored to be chosen to be part of this project and working with the fire department over the last while. Like Wilson said, we're all the way through taking a look at the old station to present day. So it's very exciting that we're here at this kind of milestone to kind of show you progress and en route to construction. So just a little bit about where we're at, if anyone doesn't kind of know the site, it's where the old motel used to be, like Wilson was saying, on the sloping site there. So, in terms of safety, such a great site because, just getting off Central Street and then the small residential base, small roads and the turn, anyway, just a whole bunch of stuff. It's going to be so much more improved. So it's a real beacon for the community to be out there. And again, having the opportunity to kind of look at that along the way has been fantastic. So I think like Colin's intro is really inspiring actually, and just thinking about it, we start the projects off as we get going with what we call story elements. So they're narratives and things we use to design, or as Wilson would say, move blocks around along the way. But I just maybe want to point out three here we're kind of thinking about in relation to Colin's speech. I think the safe zones and is a really big one because, like Colin was saying, these are volunteers, and it's not just going out and dealing with the accidents or the fires. They're coming back with contaminants and trauma and things like that. So we're thinking about in the design, and Wendy's going to walk through the plans just to kind of show you how we're doing this. But thinking about, they're all going home to families and their own world. So how can we make that safer for them? Not just immediately, but there's been studies about carcinogens and things like that. So how do we make that people are trying to volunteer? How do you get that continual health and safety long term? So we think we're really excited about how the architecture is going to help do that. Helping firefighters help others, again, about response time. So, the plans there's so many things go into these plans through engineering and all the work that we've gone back and forth with the fire department and the committee, of course, but there's lots that go into these and then they get simplified so you can see them. But thinking about how best, when they pull up, it could be a night during supper or whatever, to get through the system and into the vehicle, get out of there. So the response time, something that we've really paid a lot of attention to and are really happy about and excited about. Beating that time, right? Or continually improving. And also I want to work there. I think that's another big one, like Colin said again, these people are working for free, which is unbelievable that they're dedicating their time to this. So I think having a place that is going to help with recruiting, retention, but also not decommissioning, but just recharge and mental well-being is a big deal. So through the architecture can, we wanna enhance this, make it better for everyone and the community because they're serving. Just touching a little bit on sustainability, Wilson had mentioned there's a clearing team involved in this and energy modeling is underway at the phase we're at, so we're developing a super efficient building. Not just for reduce, greenhouse gas emissions, but also the lifespan of the building and thinking about the long-term, energy costs of the community. It's gonna save over time, so those are all things we're thinking about as and for getting into this and then looking to the future adaptability of the building as well. Thanks, Evan. And we'll be around too, like Wilson said, if you want to ask specific questions about things.
Can you all hear me? Wonderful. So like Wilson was mentioning, we did a lot of work to figure out how to arrange these blocks on the site to provide a safe plan and an efficient plan, as well as respect the adjacent neighboring properties and create an engaging civic presence. So we tried to focus on centralizing the building on site. So you can see it's kind of between that north and south property line sandwiched right in the middle to respect those neighboring properties. There's quite a few residential properties down to the south at the bottom of the page. So we wanted to create a buffer in space as well as a landscape buffer to help shield incoming traffic and the lights that might be coming from the fire apparatus as they're exiting the building. We've tried to also create a efficient circulation with the fire trucks. So we provided the fire station with drive-through bays, so they come in. I'm trying to point even though I'm so far from the plans. So they come in at the south there. They can drive the fire apparatus around to the back and then repark in the building. So that allows them to work a lot more efficiently, have less crew to help direct where the fire trucks are going. I'm sure you've probably all driven by and seen in the current station, they have to sometimes stop traffic to maneuver those trucks back into the station. So this allows them to do that a lot easier. And we have lots of space on the front tarmac or apparatus apron so they can maneuver safely and efficiently to get out of the building and making their response times more efficient.
Could you point out where Highway 3 is?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
We also have a civic court in front of our primary entrance, and that's where you'll see the flagpoles. That will be the primary building entrance, which we've making a point to separate from the primary response entry where the firefighters will be coming in to respond to calls to make sure there's no unsafe interactions there. If you have a member of the public coming in the front door and you have firefighters coming in the other entrances. So that creates a more efficient and safe working zone. And we've also made sure to future-proof this plan. So you'll see in the gray hatching, we have some paved parking where we have primary response. And then at the north end, we've included some gravel parking areas that as the fire department expands, they have additional parking when needed. Probably go to the next slide there, Heather. This is the level 1 floor plan. So we, again, with the future proofing, we wanted to give enough apparatus bays to allow the department to expand as they get new trucks. So we've right-sized the building, not to create excess space, but to make sure it's efficient now and in the future. So we have 6 drive-through bays with some apparatus support spaces on the left-hand side of the page there. So that's all their where they store and dry their hoses. They have their compressor room, a CPA room where they do minor maintenance, and also some building systems rooms, the water room there, where we have incoming water services. And then we really wanted to focus the plan though around that response route and trying to keep that response time as quick as possible. So where Gary's pointing there, we have our two main entrances coming in there, both feeding into the locker room. So we've made a point to focus on the separation of zones in this project, like Stephen was mentioning, to make sure we're keeping the building operating as safely as possible for now and for long-term health of volunteer firefighters. So having a separate locker room where they can stow their personal belongings and not bring those into contaminated zones and then back to their families. So that's where they store their personal belongings, and they move quickly into the bunker gear room where they can don their gear to respond to a call, move out into the apparatus bay, and then into the trucks, and away they go. So try to create that really efficient stream of movement in and through the building to respond when they get a fire call. And then when they return from a call, they bring those apparatus back through the drive-through bays like we talked about. And we have a decontamination zone at the, yeah, I'm trying to circle while I'm very circling, the northeast side there. So we have our decontamination room for them to clean their gear. And then they could move into the showers. That's an important step, so not bringing all their contaminated clothing and hair, if you will, doing a full wash off before they come back to their families. And then the gear will go through a drying process, and then that's efficiently positioned to get the clean and dry gear back into the bunker gears. So we've tried to create a really efficient circuit there. Move on to the next slide, Heather. On the second level, this is where we have a large meeting and training room that fits the whole volunteer staff to do their training, whether it's I don't fully know the details of all the training you do, but I know it's extensive. And we also have at the northeast face of the building a kitchen and a decompression room there, so that when they return from a call, they're facing that nature and the lake behind the building to help with that mental well-being and restore. And then at the front of the building, we have a small meeting room, and that's what will be used also for a debrief about when they have tough calls and they want a private place to do a small debrief of the group. And we also have the chief's office located there with interior and exterior views to the apparatus bay and the apparatus apron. There's also a mezzanine on above the apparatus bay. So apparatus bay, to fit those huge fire trucks, it's quite tall. So it's about 2 stories of a regular building worth in height. So we have the opportunity to create an efficient mezzanine condition there, where we've thrown a lot of our building equipment, our mechanical and electrical room, as well as providing a mezzanine for training purposes for the firefighters. So that kind of works as a double duty for them. On to the next.
So, like when you said, there's the 6 bays of the drive-through that you can see. This is the view from Highway 3 that you can kind of see. So the apron, the large apron, again, we just insist for safety, and like Wendy said, so that as the trucks are, doing different maneuvering, that they don't have to ever approach onto the road unless they're responding to a call. So again, thinking about safety and then separating any kind of incoming cars away from the apron, so there should be just clear cut. So we've done a lot of looking at, community in Chester, its scale of architecture. It is, by its very nature, it's a efficient response building. So the function is driving the actual use and form of the building. However, we didn't want it just to be a long block, so we spent a lot of time looking at how do you create a humble civic building that's, like Chester is simple, restrained, and kind of in harmony with that scale. So we looked at varied roof lines, having the massing coming in and out, using changes in just slight materials, so in texture. So we didn't want to, create something flashy. We wanted it to kind of glow, if you could say. So, even the app bays themselves will have some glazing, so you can actually see the apparatus beyond. And then having clarity in that so that you can tell where the response, and, you know, obviously firefighting happens and where the, like, should the public have to come, where they would go on that side. And there'll be landscaping as well, because this is an early image by us, but, you know, that forecourt will be, you know, adding to the presence of Chester, along the way. We're quite excited about it, and, yeah, really excited to kind of take this forward, and obviously we're continuing developing it. But just so you can see, there's the main entry, by the crest. There's a small meeting room, so kind of a single window to the side, and a canopy kind of defining that main entry, and it wraps around. We'll show you the next image, which will be a little bit about tying to the history of this longstanding service here with their antique apparatus. So here you can see the side entry, and like Wendy was pointing to earlier, the response is going to be in these two. Now I'm starting into the double. But along so that the firefighters and response team is always kind of having this, like, in their personal vision, the history of the Chester Fire Department and the antique that they have, which is, we think is super fantastic. They want to, the public to be able to see us, but also for them as a reminder, you know, the long history. I think maybe Colin said there's 4 fathers, like there's many generations. It's pretty impressive through the department. So that's going to be housed in so that the public can see it. Also, kind of will have that kind of warm glow of from there, and you can see the canopy wrapping around. And again, we're trying to just keep this simple and elegant, I guess you could say, but breaking up the massing with various, you know, bump outs and roof lines.
That's your last slide.
Oh, that's the last slide. And like I said, we'll be around if they didn't have any specific question. Thank you.
Oh, turn it back.
Is it on?
Turned it off.
It's great having competent technical help. Would be lost without it. Thanks very much. That's good. There's, after we finish the formal part of this, and we encourage you to go back and take a closer look at those presentation boards back there. And ask hard questions, ask easy questions, but also ask hard questions if you have them. Ask me the easy ones, ask them the hard ones. So financial, everybody wants to know about money. And, oh yeah, says Geraldine. There's 2 parts to this. One is how much it's going to cost, and the second is where in the world are we going to find it? And I get the first part, which is the easy part. And then, and then I'll pass off to my colleagues who will deal with the hard part. So it's going to cost not more than $20 million. And those of you who have been here before and seen me up on my hind legs using the same language, we're not going to spend more than $20 million, which is a bold statement, but I'm deadly serious about that. And I've been saying that for, I don't know, 1.5 years, ever since I got involved. There's a certain arbitrariness about that, not completely arbitrary, but you have to set a spending limit. You have to set a budget, and that's the budget, and that's what we're going to live with. And that includes the preliminary design and all the work that's been done to date. So we have, I guess the obvious question is it's all very nice to say that, how do we make it happen? So there's a couple of things, and I've been through this before, and I rely heavily on Donna and Bobby over here and the cost estimators. The first part of it is to make sure that everybody on the team knows that's the limit. Talking to you guys. And to make sure that there's very close ongoing collaboration between the design team and what they're thinking about in terms of structure and finishes and everything, and the cost estimators who work for Donna and Bobby here. So the cost estimate, and that is happening. So there's a lot of back and forth, and the designers are talking to the estimators all the time about alternatives and what would be impact if we went this way, and what would be the impact if we went that way. So it's that iterative, collaborative process to make sure that we don't end up with a design and go out to tender, public tender, and I say, oh my God, we didn't think it was going to cost that much. And there's been lots of instances, not only in the municipal field, but in the private sector, where all of a sudden there's a big screaming of breaks at the very last second. And everybody has to go back to the drawing board, and we are going to do our damnedest to avoid that. No guarantees in this world, but Donna tells me that pricing is, you're going to nod your head at me and say, yes, pricing is not as volatile as it was
Right.
2 years ago and a year ago. It's very, very difficult to predict, but it seems to have settled down a little bit. Is that correct? Good. So we're in a little bit more solid ground there. One of the dread words in the design and construction business is value engineering, but we will rely heavily on both the architects and the engineering team at the beginning to find the most durable, cost-effective solutions to achieve the functional outcome that we can without ending up with a piece of junk for a building. It needs to be durable. And to go through it, and this is a little bit later in the design cycle, but when the cost estimators get further detail and are getting better information about what is to be built, we go back with the design and engineering team through a value engineering process and say, are we getting best value for the outcomes that we need to get? And that again is an iterative process. The trick here is not to let it pile up to the very end. I'm repeating myself, but not to find ourselves having gone to tender and we can't afford it. We want to know, we want to minimize that risk at the front end, and that requires a whole lot of work, and that's why that's a big chunk of Grey Cardinal's work here. No guarantees, but we're doing our darndest to make sure we stay within that limit. And the team understands that if the worst happens and we go out to tender and it is over our limit, then we're going to have to go back and try again. So nobody wants that. The financing, I've got a little bit here on financing on my end, but we've got financing in place with Scotiabank to cover the design costs. We need to obviously get interim financing in place to cover the construction costs, say about 14 to 16 months worth of construction. So that's where the big dollars really start to roll up. And then in the end, that will be taken out with permanent long-term financing. And I'm going to hand it over to Heather and to Kirk to deal with that in a minute here. There are 3 bodies that need to approve the financing. We've been through these 3 with the interim or with the design stage financing and didn't have any serious problems. And we'll be going back in May to the Village Commission for approval for enough financing to get the building built, and to the municipality. So there's dates on that's mark those in your calendar and come down to those 2 meetings and ask hard questions or heckle or do whatever it pleases you to do at those meetings. But May 20th with the Village Commission and May 28th with the municipality, we'll be presenting a detailed financing plan. And once that's done, it goes downtown to, or uptown to the Minister of Municipal Affairs. And that is more of a process, I think, Heather, more of a process related problem than a approval process. If the municipalities will approve it, then the Municipal Affairs will approve it, but we need to jump through those hoops. And there's a bunch of them, and some of them are 6 feet off the ground and they're on fire. So that's the kind of thing you have to do. And Heather and Kirk are very much involved in that. Kirk is the treasurer of the Fire Services Committee. And he is going to take the hard part of this and tell you what the impact on the tax rate is likely to be, among other important things. So Heather and Kirk, it's your show.
Okay, well, good evening, everybody. Colin said it the best here at the start of the meeting tonight. It is an honor for us to be part of this committee and to be able to help the fire department achieve a goal that they've had for probably at least 25 or 30 years to get a new station. And I'm certainly very happy to be part of that, to do whatever I can to help this group of people get a facility that they deserve. Before I start to talk about the financial part of this, I also would like to call out Kevin McCollum. So we've heard about other people here in the organization, how they contribute to the fire department. Well, she is the glue that holds this committee together and does a huge amount of work in the background for all of us. So if I look good with these, at this presentation tonight, the thanks goes to her. So. Yeah. So the first slide is we need to talk about the loan distribution process. So obviously, we don't have the cash to build the station or for phase 2. So we've bought and borrowed that money through the bank, but we don't get that money in a lump sum. So that 1.3 million that we got will come over time. And so unlike a personal loan where you receive it, if you buy a house and the house is built, you get a lump sum. And bank loans are dispersed in installments for this type of build. And we get the money through what's called drawdown. So the invoices come in and for the work that's being done, Wilson will approve them. He'll say, hey, this work has been done, looks good. They go to Heather, who will then review them and then send them to the bank. And then the bank will give us a drawdown based on the invoices that we've submitted. And so the committee's loan repayment terms are interest only until the building is completed. This slide is one that I presented before, but I think it's important to continue to put it out there. When we started this committee or became the committee about 3 to 4 years ago, one of the things that we recognized very quickly was that there was a real deficit in terms of monies in the fire department. They got enough to maintain and to operate the service, but nothing really about equipment or a hall or a new station. And so we looked at the fire tax rates in the municipality, and we looked at what the rate was for Chester, and we quickly realized that we needed to change the rate. So our rate in Chester was the lowest in the municipality for many years. And in 2024, we reported the need for greater resources. And so what we decided at that time as a committee, that this is through the budgeting process every year, and we go through the bodies and get it approved. But we decided that we would need at least to raise the tax rate by 2 cents a year. And so we've done that every year right up to the current year. And what I wanted to show on this slide is that what we said was that we need to increase that tax rate so that we can drive money into reserves for both the building and the equipment. And you can see from the chart, I apologize, it's not that big, but what we did was, you can see in 24-25, we raised an extra $219,000, and 95% of that went to capital and reserves. The next year was 250, and 84% that year went to capital and reserves. And in 26-27, we're saying that there will be 264,000, and 87% of that will go to capital and reserve. So it's important, you know, we basically what I wanted to say with this slide, we're doing what we said we would do 3 years ago, and we'll continue to do that. So the next year's fire tax rate, I won't be able to tell you the rate here tonight, but it will most likely increase, and we'll see that from the next slide here. And rest assured, we all pay taxes just like every one of you folks do here. And we want to make sure that we get the lowest rate possible, but we also need to realize that we need to pay for this new structure. So in this slide, for prudence, we need to calculate our projections based on the worst case scenario. So in other words, when we're putting a projection together, as Wilson talked about here tonight, that the maximum that the station would cost is 20 million, and he's pretty tough on these guys putting together the projection. So I believe that we're going to live to that. So when we put that projection together, we need to calculate on the worst case. So it's the $20 million. It's at the full interest rate. There's no donations, there's no grants, there's no nothing. That's the worst case scenario. But we know that there will be donations. So fundraising kicks into gear now that we have a final design. We couldn't go out, or the fire department couldn't really go out into the community and do a lot of fundraising or from big donors and that sort of thing until we have a design that we can or that they can show people and get their support for it. And donations are intended to offset the construction costs and the debt servicing continuing after the build is completed. So the fundraising will go on for many years to come into the future. To date, with virtually no campaign, the donations are $287,000. So right now, there are no grants for the building. Grants have been available for emergency services infrastructure for the last several years, have not been available. And they've only been available for firefighting equipment and training. But a new federal Build Community Strong Fund was just announced last week. I'm sure you all heard it. And we will certainly be pursuing that, among other things, to get some support for this hall. And then there's the borrowing rate. Our current rate on the loan is prime minus 0.75%. But we'll talk about those projections. They're at prime. And with prime at 4.45 since November 25, we're actually being charged 3.7 on that loan because our rate with the bank is prime minus 0.75%. And what I might say about prime, you know, nobody can really project where that's going to go. However, in the past year, the rate has continually dropped. And so last year in May, it was 4.95%. Now it's at 4.5. So we've seen continuous decline. So hopefully that will stay in that range. But our rate will be 0.75% off of prime, and that prime rate can change. And of course, property assessments. So the annual fire rate will need to accommodate the amount needed for the loan payment each year, and the actual property assessment in the service area directly affect the rate. Since as revenue goes up from the assessments, the rate needed to cover the loan payments goes down. So on the chart here, what you can see that there are no donations, no grant funding, and there's no 0.75 applied to the loan borrowing. So what we look at here in this year, in 26-27, we'll pay $86,000 to service the debt. And in 27-28, it's $680,000. And then you go from there in 28-29, it's $1,367,000. However, with the tax rate or with the rate that we got at the bank of minus 0.75, that would drop that by 75,000 as an example. And in 28 or 29-30, the 1,450,000 would be 1,350,000, just applying the 0.75. However, you know, like I said, it's very, challenging for us to sit here now and tell you what the tax rate is going to be. Because we don't know the final cost, we're getting close of the building. There's no real donation, campaign underway yet. And, we have no grant money, to apply. All of those things will affect what the rate is as well as the assessments in the area. So I apologize, I can't tell you what the rate will be, I can tell you a number, but it won't be the right number. And so, we don't want to give you the wrong information. So in summary, I think, you know, it's important for everybody, for us, to keep our eye on the prize. And, you know, and you look at the men and women, most of the firefighters are here, and you look around the room, and then you look at this slide, but they have to, work in the conditions. And we realize how important it is for this station, to become a reality and support those people. So I want the, you know, that picture tells us the story of why we need to do this. And so, in summary, the area fire tax rate will increase from today's rate over the next 2 to 3 years. But the levels will be influenced by a significant fundraising effort, including potential in-kind services, potential funding grants, actual interest rate and terms on borrowing, the actual annual property assessments, and of course, the final build cost. We're projecting 20 million, it could be something different than that. So the actual costs are constantly being tracked and reevaluated, and the projection updated. The variables will be factored into the annual budget deliberations. And alternatives to best manage the long term will be considered, such as provincial debentures. And of course, we can't apply to use that avenue until the building is completed. And questions will be at the end. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I actually didn't have the time to talk here now, but I will. Thanks for coming, really, and thanks for your support. And just to give you some comfort, we will raise about $5 million in capital for this from donors. We're currently, we showed 287,000, 100,000 of that came from the firefighters.
All right.
And I've had discussions with several donors, and I have online about $2 million, maybe a little more, and I intend on getting up to 5. A lot of rich people in the neighborhood, they should pay. Thank you all. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Colin. Thank you, Kurt. Thanks to everybody here. Now, that's the end of the formal part of this, so we'll expose ourselves to the slings and arrows and questions that you might have. Fire away. Anybody have any questions?
Is there a public washroom there for people that are,
No,
there's no public rooms for the,
no, it's not a public building. That would.
sometimes I have to go.
Well, you can go out back. You're a boy.
Great, we'll tell you where the gamblers are.
Geraldine.
Nosy. Are the showers and lockers unisex, or do we have?
All gender is the current phraseology. Yeah, you want to,
So fashion.
Wendy, do you want to speak to the notion of all gender washrooms, or is there anything you have to add there?
My thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are gender neutral.
Gender neutral.
Gender, yeah.
It's been an effort to ensure that we're inviting equal opportunity for the volunteers as well. Thank you, Heather. That's also to help with volunteer recruitment for all genders, to make sure it's a welcoming space for everyone. In a lot of stations, you'll see you know, a 3-to-1 ratio of male to female for that, and that can actually help hinder recruitment of females or other genders because the facilities just aren't really there for them. So we wanted to make sure it was a welcoming space for everybody.
You're not talking about gang showers, obviously.
They're all separate shower rooms with a lockable door. Everyone can have a private shower.
I promise you remember the word gender neutral.
Gender neutral. Everybody remember that phrase. Gender neutral. Okay, any other questions?
Also about efficiency, if you think about it too, to not build, sort of female showers in a certain amount, and male showers a certain amount, and then if a crew comes back after an event that doesn't have, any bigger side, there's empty ones. Now there's actually more choice that they have. So you can do a more efficient layout, again, saving space and optimizing or
Now, somebody else must have. a
Over
question.
there.
Ah, okay.
Well, I think it's great that it's gonna get built, sounds like it's not gonna get built, but the last meeting was an angled part to the roof, this looks like a flat roof, like, or like, rather than that, what changed, is it price that changed that, or? Because the concept is Chester with the pink dog. You know, this is a flat roof, like the old liquor store. You know, was it based on price or?
not strictly price, you know, we did, like, price is a factor because, you know, this is a steel frame building. And, like, open web steel joists are the most efficient.
Yeah.
We're also looking at, solar for the future. Like the snow loading of a roof besides a flat roof, also you can imagine, like, you know, in your deck or wherever snow drifts happen, so the structure had to be started to be beefed up, on the big apparatus bay, which is the most, because of the square footage, any sort of price increase in there is a like bigger variable, so you have to account for that. But then also, as we looked at that, the scale is just getting really big, you know, it is even that one side of the volume. Is sort of still sizable, so doing a pitched roof on that was becoming like out of scale, even though like we did look at that too, like we liked that idea. But we also didn't want to create like an exaggerated house feeling, and that's what it was it's just really big. So we started to look at the scale is Chester, not just, I guess, an icon of a house. If you guys think.
But the original one had a smaller section on it, and that was angled, broke it up.
Yeah.
Find it.
Yeah, after the apparatus fade, we looked at that, yeah.
Looked more fitting, I think.
Yeah, we did look at that as like the beginning of like, how do you tie it? Do you sort of mimic a house form, which is, you know, there's more houses here than civic buildings, but in the end, we thought it would be more just to create a, I guess, a humble, simple civic building off the highway rather than sort of what was becoming like this, with like a large trucks. You know, because it is the house, I guess.
Thank you. Anything else?
I think I asked 2 questions, but when the trucks are gonna leave the stations, they go onto the highway, will there be traffic control lights, flashing red lights?
So the question, if you can't hear the question, it was when the trucks are leaving the apparatus bay and entering the highway, are there warning lights on the highway? And the answer is yes. You want to speak, when you guys speak again to that a little bit?
You guys hear me? Yeah, so we have looked at the visibility from the site and currently, the apparatus leaving have full visibility that meets TAC requirements, which is great. We do have a couple trees we need to trim to the side, but otherwise we have clear visibility. But I think that looking into some, signage is definitely appropriate, considering there's a bit of a curve and a crest to the street, but otherwise we actually have quite good visibility.
The engineers did calculations about what the sight lines are, both entering and leaving the site. So leaving the site is, we don't have anyway, leaving the site is right out of the apparatus bays onto the highway. Entering the site is on the south, you know, the way those posters are oriented, it's down on the right-hand corner, lower right-hand corner, and that requires visibility as well as they re-enter the site and go around the back into the bay. So the engineers have looked at those sight lines, accounting for both the curb and the elevation of the road compared to the building, and they're okay, they're all good. Okay, good.
I got a whole list.
You know, other people are allowed to ask questions, these guys are dominating. Over here.
Go ahead. No, I just wondering, is this a follow lead project? Lead certified project?
There's no pursuing of a specific,
Certification.
certification, thank you.
Yeah.
It's about cheaper not to, but that's the theory, because it's on all in save money. And can it?
Can't hear you. Yeah.
Oh, well, whatever, I just wondered if it was a lead certified building,
Yeah.
after spending so much money, then with
Can I-
the entire lead certified.
Yeah, can I just speak to that briefly?
Sure.
LEED is architectural jargon for leadership in environmental and something design. Anyway, it was a set of standards that were heavily promulgated, probably starting 20 years ago, and there was various levels, LEED, bronze, silver, and gold, and I was involved in some LEED certified buildings way back. Most of that environmental and energy efficiency has now been absorbed into the general architectural standards and practices. And there's very, very little, except for a lot of process to be gained by getting into the formal certification process. You do get a nice little plaque on the wall, but it costs a pile of money because you need to go through a lot of procedural hoops. And so our decision, and this really came from the management side of the project, which is perhaps to say me, is we will pursue best practices in terms of environmental and sustainability and energy and so on, but we're not going to go chasing certifications. So the short answer is, will it be LEED certified? No. But I don't think we're losing any. Okay, so you had this part two for your question. I think
Anybody else, how are we gonna heat the building?
heat, heat will be air to water heat pumps, supplemented by propane boilers for emergency. This is a, what's the phrase?
Post that,
Pardon me?
posted that.
Post-disaster building. So it needs to be functional all the time. It will have a substantial gen set that will run the building in case of power outages. And it needs to be self-sufficient throughout any kind of disaster sort of situation. Who else? Brad, do you have another question? You must have another one in your pocket.
Look at my list there. Oh, yeah,
I knew that.
well, somebody has to ask, never know what's going on. Comfort station, is there any allowance for, if there is a major disaster, their power's up for a week, and then is there any part of this building that can be used as a comfort station? I know the Baptist church has a minimal service, but these were all paying for. Is there any consideration to use a piece of that for a comfort station?
That's not its primary purpose. Its primary purpose is for firefighters, but the answer is yes.
Oh, good.
The building will function under any circumstances, and water and heat and all of lights and everything will be on. And so if required, it will be available to the community as a comfort station.
Good. Thank you. That's it.
Anybody else? Any other questions?
Brad's happy for all.
Yeah. Anybody else? Okay, thanks very much, and thanks to everybody here. And, there's goodies over here, and go back and look at the pretty pictures. We're gonna stick around for more questions if anybody has it.
Yeah, I just want to make sure the state, like the fundraising is legal.